have the blind man Bartimaeus, and it's kind of an interesting thing that happens there. You know, he asks Jesus, he's poor, he needs help. Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. And what does everybody do? How does everybody react to them? Shut up. Be quiet. You're nobody. You're worthless. You're blind. You can't do anything. You're lame, and forget it. But Jesus calls them. So the blind and the lame, those who can't see, those who are considered worthless and useless in society, Jesus calls him. And he calls them. Those who are considered useless in society. And really today, you know, listening to the politics and things like that, we're not far from that either, too. And we have a lot of that stuff going on today, still. You know, we think we've evolved, right? No, we haven't. We haven't evolved at all, you know. So one of the things I'm going to do is kind of give you a little bit of some quotes here. Now, these quotes are amazing because it sounds like it comes from Nazis, but it's actually from people here in America. So you see if you know who these people are. This is kind of an interesting thing. So it actually starts, you know, a little bit before the Nazis take power and stuff like that in Germany. But these are Americans. These are Americans. So one of them is here. A spread of birth control to the less capable part of the population will be an important advance for eugenics in cutting down the racial contribution of inferior stocks. Wow. That was Paul Popenoe, Birth Control and Eugenics, in the Birth Control Review, Volume 1, Numbers 4 and 5, April through May 1917, page 6. So 1917, it's kind of an interesting thing. That's the year Our Lady of Fatima appeared. I don't know, is that coincidental? I don't know. Here's another one. We are now in a state where our charities, our compensation acts, our pensions, hospitals, and even our drainage and sanitary equipment will all tend to keep alive the sickly and the weak who are allowed to propagate and in turn produce a race of degenerates. Margaret Sanger, founder of Planned Parenthood, Birth Control and Women's Health Birth Control Review, Volume 1, Number 12, December of 1917, page 7. There's another one here. There is no greater international waste than the spawning of the slums. Birth control has become necessary as a check upon the blind workings of ignorance and poverty. Margaret Sanger, founder of Planned Parenthood, an answer to Mr. Roosevelt, Birth Control Review, Volume 1, Number 12, December 1917, page 13. Another one here. Knowledge of birth control is essentially moral. It gives general, though prudent, its general, though prudent practice must lead to a higher individuality and ultimately to a cleaner race. Margaret Sanger, founder of Planned Parenthood, Morality and Birth Control Review, Volume 2, Numbers 2 and 3, February through March 1918, page 14. The other one here I'll quote from, there are already 37,069 persons in public institutions for the mentally defective, and it is to be presumed that if these hospitals were not now overcrowded, there would be some thousands more, and the number of insane and feeble-minded are increasing. Ignorance and stupidity create too many children. Margaret Sanger, founder of Planned Parenthood, Birth Control Review, Volume 2, Number 7, July 1918, page 9. Wow. The founding of Planned Parenthood is for eugenics. It is for birth control and for abortion. That is its very inception, and that gives light to the videos we've been seeing lately in the news. This did not just pop up out of nowhere. This has been in the plan since the beginning of Planned Parenthood. Here's another quote a little bit later. Not Margaret Sanger this time, though. It says here, each country will have to decide of its own form of coercion to determine when and how it should be employed. At present, the means available are compulsory sterilization and compulsory abortion. Perhaps someday we may be enforcing compulsory birth control will be feasible. Alan F. Guttmacher, former director of Planned Parenthood Federation of America, Medical World News, June 6, 1969, right before Roe versus Wade. Now, this is another one that's very interesting. We recommend mandatory abortion for any unmarried girl to be found within the first 3 months of pregnancy, and mandatory sterilization of which any such girl giving birth out of wedlock for the second time. 1969 White House Conference on Hunger on pregnant and nursing women of infants, headed by Planned Parenthood's Alan Guttmacher. This is still going on today. Now, there's something that kind of happened to understand. It's all about eugenics. If you don't know what eugenics is, and remember, it's important for the young people to understand this eugenics thing, because eugenics, they're not getting taught this. What Hitler did, that wickedness, they're not taught that. Not getting it at all. Parents, grandparents, you need to tell your children about this stuff, because these are the same tactics Hitler used. It's Nazistic. Now, if you don't know, the founder of eugenics is Galton. There's a guy named Galton. And he had a sales point to eugenics. How could people be thinking about this kind of stuff? Why do people in Germany accept this? Well, what happened is he had a vision, and he wanted to share this vision. And his advertisement was basically, imagine a world where there is no war. Imagine a world where there's total peace. There are absolutely no disabled. There is nobody who is in need. Everybody is equal, and there is no bad things going on, right, that way. Sounds wonderful, doesn't it? The problem is, the reason why there's nobody in need is because you just killed them. You get rid of the degenerate races. You get the pure race. That's the whole idea of it. So you create a subhuman class. Like the Nazis considered the Jews. In America, it was the blacks, right, from time of old. But now here's an interesting one. Now this is one in 1956. This is the Eugenics Review. Most of the quotes were actually from the Birth Control Review. That's why I had birth control on there. But obviously, eugenics was supporting birth control because they were talking about a eugenics purpose for it. So now we got this here by Frederick Osborne, Galton and Mid-Century Eugenics, April of 1956. So that was the year before they came out with the 57 Chevy, right? So it's kind of interesting what he says here. We need the greatest possible number of births among genetically superior individuals, whether they are among the able individuals or are the majority in one group or among the able individuals who are the minority in another group. Since eugenics is not concerned with reducing birth rate as a whole, a sound process of purely genetic selection would have to reach into every socioeconomic and racial group to seek out the genetically valuable individuals and attempt to increase their rate of births, concurrently with the attempts to reduce births among the less valuable. So what we're saying now is like, you got birth control, but what happened was everybody was using birth control. They got to come up with a plan to bring the genetically superior people to reproduce more and the inferior people less. So now what you got to do is you got to come up with a plan to do this. So he says here, in here, he kind of gets to it. There's another part of this here. He goes on, my own feeling, now, okay, I'll just read this through. My own feeling is that if eugenics is to make any progress in the foreseeable future, because you can't do it, like Hitler just happened. This whole idea of superior race isn't working in society. So my own feeling is that the eugenics is to make any progress in the foreseeable future, we will not only have to drop the idea of assigning genetic superiorities to social or racial groups, but we will even have to stop trying to designate individuals as superior or inferior. To many eugenicists, this would seem a radical step, almost the abandonment of eugenics. But a little consideration will show that there are means of selection which do not require that we humiliate one half of the individuals who comprise the human race by telling them that they are not as fit as the other half to procreate the next generation. In the latter part of his life, Galton urged the study of forces under social control, which would influence the distribution of births. So he's saying we need to basically make a big-scale B.F. Skinner box to control society, to get individuals to choose what they want them to choose. You use schools, you get into the school systems and start teaching these ideologies. Grade school all the way up through college. Get into sociology, psychology, all the soft sciences, and even into the political sciences. To get people to control these things, Hollywood, things like that, TV, media, using popularity. These are all means of social control. What's interesting, though, is he comes down 2 paragraphs later, he says, contraception, a force under social control, greatly influences group differentials in rates of birth. So he wants to use contraception to reduce the inferior birth rate. At the end of this, he kind of reiterates all this. He says, on such a base, it is surely possible to build a system of voluntary unconscious selection. So this voluntary unconscious selection is getting you to choose it without you realizing that's the purpose of it. See, this is why Planned Parenthood always puts their abortion facilities in places of high population of blacks and Hispanics, and those who are immigrating, whoever's immigrating, not from Europe. That's what they do. So to build a system of voluntary unconscious selection, but the reasons advanced must be generally acceptable reasons. Let's stop telling anyone that they have a generally inferior genetic quality, for they will never agree. Let's base our proposals on the desirability of having children born in homes where they will get affectionate and responsible care. And perhaps our proposals will be accepted. What I see in this here, what happens after this time, if you do research, all the talk about superiority, inferiority, degenerates, morons, all those kind of language goes out the door. The language changes to family planning, Planned Parenthood, trying to give it a positive image. So Planned Parenthood and planned family is code word for the eugenicists to getting rid of the inferior. So hence today we have Planned Parenthood, and this is why Planned Parenthood ought to be defunded, especially considering they get $500 million from our federal government alone, not counting our state governments. It must be defunded to get rid of the genocide. Not everybody in Planned Parenthood wants this, but they've snookered us, and they've snookered society to believe that they are for the people, that they are for women, and they're not. As people of God, we are for the poor. We don't help those in need, we don't help the handicapped by killing them. We don't help those in need by killing them. We give them a hand up. We give them hope. We love them. We give them their dignity and do not treat them as some sort of subhuman. Today's class of subhumans are not just the Hispanic community and the blacks. It is the unborn, because the unborn are not considered persons. And that argument of persons makes the baby subhuman. Whether you intend it to be or not, you make it okay to kill a class of human beings, even though you might think that they're not human persons. It is a disgrace for humanity, and we as a society need to stand up. Why did Hitler get by with what he did? Because good people were silent. Don't be silent. Educate yourself on this issue. These dogmas of birth control and so-called women's rights is a bust. It's hurt so many women. It has treated them as object, and rape has been on the rise. We need to stand up and demand the dignity of women and the dignity of these babies. America needs to rise before we become another Nazi civilization, if we're not there already.